They know how to clean with each other, go to environments where they accept us, they feel part of us.
Can't hear you back here.
Same thing with the black community portrayal is, is that poor, victimized, as to say, with comical entertainer. I also see the media that portray violence. But then when she was saying when they go to a news outlet, they always pick out that one person that doesn't speak for the whole view. And like, anyway, like when I watch videos, I'm like, I don't know. And then, and then toward the end, what I was asking them was that when we go to, especially when there's a race issue, always go to that weak people, Armstrong, and I'm like, and then I asked the kids who I teach, and he was like, you can't speak for you guys. I mean, sometimes I really expect that word, but and that's how the media tend to, they're not educated us, they're entertaining us and centralize everything and top up the ratings so they could get money for the program. So I don't take the value of media too much. I always try to research it myself.
All right. Thank you. Have a group over here towards the back. Any group? I will make you volunteer. Remember, you're my students right now. Thank you, Mr. Smith's group.
I'll just point out one of the things we had a nice discussion of where Dr. Smith came over and joined us at the table for that brief second is talking about the Native American on how we have social teams, schools, using them as their mascot, the Indian, Atlanta Braves, or Redskins, and Florida State Seminoles, and we were saying how that at one point I thought that that was brought up that should be stopped, because it is degrading. And Dr. Smith even pointed out that the school had at one point had a mascot from, was it the Indians? Indians. And so but then she said that they changed that to the Red Hawks, but there's another smaller school that will not change that. And you go to them and say, that's degrading. They say, nah, we're not being degrading. This is our tradition. And so how we can take positive things like tradition and respect, honor, things we should have, but use it in our own perspective to benefit us, even if it's degrading to a culture or to a people. So we had a nice discussion about that being a change from Native American perspective. Also, we talked about the idea of the phrase we use, like Indian giver. Where when you think about it, it's like, yeah, he's an Indian giver. And they said, what does that really mean? Did the Native Americans really try to take back something they gave? No, they was tricking. So another term, phrase we use was, what is it?
Are you out of your cotton picking mind?
Yeah, say, are you out of your cotton picking mind? It's like, you get mad about that. Say, what? This section is out of our cotton picking mind. But no, listen what you're saying. A cotton picking mind. So when you start talking about different cultures and using small phrases and mascots or anything like that, you really need to take time to watch and really recalculate what you say, because then we continue the tradition, because our kids are here and say that, and it keeps rolling. So we sort of discussed about being mindful of demeaning one another because of the cultural backgrounds.
We talked about, and I opened it up to this, about back in the 60s, how drugs and guns were dropped into the black community by the government and CIA and stuff like that purposely to keep our people enslaved as they were when they first got here. And during that time, it just destroyed a lot of youth and got them involved in a lot of negative activity. And the media constantly portrays all of this to the kids, where they think that this is the only way you make a living in the community, by selling dope and doing things like that. And so while we were not, and I got to live from 30 years of drug addiction, so I know about it. I had first-hand experience with police involved, district attorneys and all that. So it ain't like, just all black people doing this. And but what it did, it put the men to sleep, and other races came over and they took jobs and things like this. And this was planned even before they got to America. Well, come over to America, you got a lot of finances going through their hands, but they don't invest no money, they don't do nothing with it. So you come and you get fingernails and gold teeth and all this stuff, anything that shines and glitters, because they don't have no sense. But that's not true. Of course, you educated, y'all know better than that. And then as the ones that are able to receive good teaching, and somebody can take some time out with it. So what I do right now is I go to the highways gigs, and I get those that were a little less fortunate and try to pull some teams together and we reach the people that's been left behind by ignorance and exploitation.
All right. Good job.
Hi, my name is Deborah. One of the things we talked about was how the societal impressions, basically media, the faith-based, the things that we hear directly conflict with the things that we know in our family, friend, intimate relationships with other cultures. And yet those societal messages are so powerful because, especially institutions, we don't want to reconsider whether Indians are in somebody, and we just talked about how important that was in the personal experience. Really, it should outweigh social, but in many cases it doesn't.
Everybody give yourself a round of applause. What we need to make sure is that we have a definitive definition of what culture is. buddies is a AKA, and I say, you are right, but no, but that is the culture. That is the culture, okay? I'm an educator by trade. That is a culture. So when we think about culture, if you have some norms, some cultural references, some rituals, that is a culture. Hip-hop is a culture. I get into debates when I do seminars on a collegiate level when we have to do our research conferences. I get into a lot of debates with a lot of professors because, you know, when you get with like minds, you know, we get into these battles. And some professors don't think hip-hop is a culture. They say it's a subculture. And I respectfully disagree. I think it's a culture. Because some people actually live, walk, and breathe hip-hop. Everything about them is hip-hop. Now, we can get into a debate about where hip-hop has gone from what it used to be to what it is now. Like when I said 2 Chainz, I don't know about 2 Chainz. If we were to compare like 2 Chainz to KRS-One, I mean, lyrically, he would just be dominated by KRS-One because 2 Chainz just, you know, he comes up with these metaphors. Literally, when he raps, he comes up with these metaphors that make no sense. He can look at Amy and say, I went by Amy Freshwater's house. She lives by the pool. Then yesterday I looked at Mr. Nunn. He has on a pink shirt. And that's how he sounds. Now, I'm not a rapper. I'm not a rapper. And you just seen lyrically that it's not going to work. Okay? But 2 Chainz is on fire. They love 2 Chainz. They say that he is a beast. And I'm looking and I'm like, what? He can't rap. He just says anything. When you think about hip-hop and when you think about rappers, normally, like we said, KRS-One, they come with a story. They tell you a story. They stick to a storyline, so they are storytellers. But when we look from the past and we come to the new, something has changed. Anybody can be a rapper. Anybody in this room can become a rapper. We can ask Officer Yates back there to come up with a nice beat. Yates will start beating on them, you know, Wall or something, come up with a beat. And we can have Brother Sultan come in there with him and add some harmony to that beat. And then we can just start flowing and we can actually start talking about with the History Museum in the AT&T multi-purpose room. And I saw Dev and I saw Eric. And people, if it's a nice beat, they'll go out and buy it. They'll go out and buy it. And they'll say that's the best sign of going. And then we sitting there looking like, are you serious? Are you serious? But that's a culture. So what we have to be mindful of is the first thing is we should not be disrespecting each other. Because just because somebody likes hip-hop and somebody else likes soft rock or hard rock doesn't mean that something's wrong with them. Doesn't mean that I should be looking down on them. There are a lot of people that love Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga. She is very creative. Sometimes so creative it becomes strange. Like for example, the day she decided that she had them make her a dress out of meat. But let me tell you the power and the influence of entertainers. There were people that decided that they were going to have them a dress of meat too. And for all my social media people in here, social media people, there's a thing on Facebook called Epic Fail. Yes, Epic Fail. Well, somebody took a picture of this young lady that had a meat dress on. She actually went out with a meat dress and she wrapped the meat around her in saran wrap. I can't make this up. I'm not making it up. I'm very serious. She thought she was Lady Gaga. You know, she was influenced, she was inspired by Lady Gaga. So she decided that she too wanted to be part of Lady Gaga's culture and go out and make her a meat dress. Now, I don't know, you know, how far that went or how long she decided to have meat on her body. You know, because I don't think if you go out with meat on you for too long, you might start attracting insects. I don't think it's too cool to wear a meat dress. But hey, she wore a meat dress. But that is the culture. But we need to make sure that we have an understanding that when we're working with different types of people, that we need to honor and respect them. And first you do that by honoring and respecting yourself. Some of us don't honor and respect ourselves. Sometimes when I'm doing lectures from a historical context, I always use the Jewish community they are passionate. They are serious. They love their culture. They appreciate one another. They respect one another. And they will never, never let you forget the Holocaust. Never. And notice how my voice changed. They're going to make sure you remember what happened to their people. But unfortunately, in the African American community, we don't want to talk about slavery. We don't want to talk about our atrocities. We're having an atrocity that's going on right now. And what are we doing about it? You got to be like our Jewish brothers and sisters. You cannot forget where you have come from. Where you have come from helps you move forward. It helps you build on your foundation. It helps you live a better and a greater tomorrow. You cannot forget where you come from. Your ancestors, it doesn't make a difference if you're Asian, if you're Latino, if you're black, if you're white. Your ancestors have contributed to why we're standing here today. Our ancestors. There was a time when we could not be in the same room with one another. So we have to think about the great things that have transpired through history and now that allows us to do what's in the best interest of making this a better place to live, a better place to be. Each one of us has made a decision that we want to do something. So when we're out and about, make sure we're engaging in practices and methodologies that are conducive to whatever situation you are in. If you happen to be an individual that works with a lot of people that come from different countries, learn their language. I'm not telling you you have to become fluent in French, but learn hello, bonjour, comment allez-vous? Be able to say something, and they're going to say, oh, she made an attempt. Now we have a connection. And they'll be willing to teach you. But if we don't try to bridge the gap and make a connection, we're going to continue to have the problems that we are having. And we got to move beyond those problems. Because we just messed up. His brother here, Johnny, when he talked about Al Sharpton does not speak for the entire black community. Because I'm sure some of us in this room might not agree with everything that Al Sharpton says. Is he a leader in the black community? Yes, he is. He's a leader. Now, all of us might not want him to be a leader, but he's a leader in the black community. But we have leaders sitting in this room today. And what are we doing in our community? In your community. See, some of us are so willing to help everybody else, but we won't help ourselves. We won't help in our own communities. We got to be better at this. We got to become better at everything that we're supposed to do and what we need to do. So our last and final thing that we're going to do before we run out of time is turning your package again to the strategic plan. Say basics of strategic planning. Basics of strategic planning. Because remember when we started out, I said we're not just going to talk about the problems, you know, because what happens is we just talk about the problems, we get amped up, like we're really going to go out there and do something. No, but we have to take action. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to take action. We're talking about being culturally responsive, but I want to know, and you want to know, your community wants to know, how are you going to be culturally responsive? What is your mission? What is your vision? What strategies and techniques are you going to utilize to make this happen? What are your goals? What are your objectives? Now, I'm not saying that you're going to tackle everything, but you have individuals sitting at the table with you. So you're not alone. You don't have to do this by yourself. So what I want us to do now as a collective group, so you can get together in twos or threes, but collectively, I want you to come up with a plan of action of how we can become more culturally responsive in our communities. Some of us are sitting there looking puzzled. But we don't need to be puzzled. Because when we talk about being culturally responsive, you got to think globally. I don't want you to stand inside of the square. You're going to be all over the square, okay? So, Mr. Nunn's and Miss Jordan's mission and vision might be different from Franklin's and Latasha's mission and vision. But it all has something to do with culturally responsive teaching. because we're doing what's in the best interest of our communities. Us. That's what being culturally responsive is. It's not about you. It's not about me. It is about us. And making it better. Engaging in strategies and techniques that work. Engaging in best practices. If it doesn't work, we shouldn't continue to do it. But some of us do it. So now you might not finish everything on the paper. I'm not saying that you will, but it is a start. Because we want to be able to implement it, which means we're going to take action. We're moving from talking, okay? So when we go to church, we get revved up by the preacher. Yes, amen. Then some people go back on the corner and pull out their 40 ounce. Okay? Now I'm not saying that there's anybody in the room, but I'm just being real talk. And I'm using that as an example. People go to their worship houses every Sunday, or if you go on Wednesdays to Saturdays, and they get amped up by the minister, by the preacher, and then they go back out into the world and they continue to do the same thing that they've always been doing. No, we want to take action. So again, in 2s and 3s, I want you to get together. And I just want you to talk about some action that you're going to take. This is just already have a group that's working. Amen to that. They ready. So that these 2 sisters right here, they ready to take action. They already started, and the teacher ain't told them to start, but I like it. All right? All right. So go ahead in 2s and 3s. Take it. All right.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. All the time.
She went to see about Brandon when he was doing something.
All the time.